Welcome to today's Bible study. We're looking at the text that the narrative lectionary appoints for the first Sunday of Lent in the year that we read through the book of Luke. It is Luke chapter 10, verses 25 to 42. If you haven't had a chance to read the reading yet, I encourage you to do so. You can pause the video, and down in the video description, you will see a link that'll take you to an online version of that reading. You can click the link, go off, read the reading, and then come back to the video and pick it up from here. If you don't have time to read the reading today, that's fine. I'll give you a brief synopsis of what's going on in the reading. We start out with the parable of the Good Samaritan. It's a story that is told by Jesus in response to being questioned by one of the biblical scholars of the day. In the parable of the Good Samaritan, we hear that a man is robbed and left by the side of the road for dead. Then two temple workers, a priest and a Levite, walk by this man on the other side of the road and ignore his plight. Then a Samaritan, a foreigner, stops, cares for the man the best he can, gets the man to safety, and pays for the rest of his care as well. The story is taught so that there can be a conversation with the biblical scholar about who acted most like a neighbor. After that story, we have the story of Jesus going to visit with Mary and Martha. And when Jesus gets to the house, Mary is sitting at the feet of Jesus, and Martha gets upset because she's off doing what needs to be done. And Jesus says that Mary has picked the better part. Now, there are times that I sit back and wonder why the crafters of the lectionary have put the stories together in the way that they have. And both of these stories are well-known stories, and I can't remember a time when we've read them together in Sunday worship. So the question that came to my mind was, why are they paired together? In some ways, I've always seen them as a stark division from one to the other. There is the parable of the Good Samaritan. There's the story of Jesus visiting with Mary and Martha. And yet today, that boundary is blurred. In the story of the Good Samaritan, the priest and the Levite, those two temple workers, do not break the boundaries of ritual purity. They could have helped the man, and the fact that they were going from Jerusalem to Jericho would probably imply that their time in the temple was over, and if they helped the man, they had time to repurify themselves before they went back. But it's the Good Samaritan who breaks the boundary between foreign nations and helps this Jew who is lying at the side of the road, who has been left for dead. It seems simple enough for us to understand that breaking boundaries, social conventions, is an important thing to do when we're looking after the welfare of another. However, what is there about breaking boundaries in this story of Jesus visiting with Mary and Martha? Well, N.T. Wright, a biblical scholar in our day, helps us understand this. And you need to understand that the biblical world is very different from our own. N.T. Wright says, the real problem was that Mary was behaving as if she were a man. Now, today, that would not be an issue. At least I would hope it would not be an issue. That there would be hard and fast gender roles. We're getting to a place in the world where gender is hopefully no longer an issue. But it was at the time that this story took place. In that culture, as in many parts of the world today, houses were divided into male space and female space. And male and female roles were strictly demarcated as well. Mary had crossed an invisible but very important boundary within the house and another equally important boundary within the social world. Again, this is a concept that I have a hard time wrestling with, because I don't think that those boundaries should exist today. And Wright goes on and says, this wasn't principally a matter of superiority and inferiority, though no doubt it was often perceived and articulated like that. It was a matter of what was thought of as an appropriate division between the two halves of humanity. Again, in this day and age, we might have a different understanding of that. But at this time, biblically, this was very important. To sit at someone's feet meant, quite simply, to be their student. And to sit at the feet of a rabbi was what you did if you wanted to be a rabbi yourself. There was no thought here of learning for learning's sake. Mary has quietly taken her place as a would-be teacher and preacher of the kingdom of God. And importantly, Jesus affirms her right to do so. Mary has broken a boundary, and Jesus affirms her right to do so. Now, we're left with two questions for today, and they're somewhat related, so I'll pose them to you together. Our first one. When have you been willing to be like Mary, to break the boundaries of convention, to do something that you felt you were called to do? You might want to take a moment to pause the video and give that some thought before the next question. And our second question. When have you been willing to be like Jesus? Willing to support someone who is breaking the boundaries of convention to do some good in the world? Again, you may want to pause the video before we wrap things up for today. Thank you for joining me in Bible study today. There will be another Bible study released on Wednesday of next week, and it will be on Luke chapter 13, verses 1 to 9, and verses 31 to 35. I encourage you to read that story in advance if you can. And if you want to carry on the conversation with today's questions, you can email me at pastorcolin@holycrossburlington.ca. And I hope that you'll join me again on Wednesday Until then, I hope you and all who you love are well.